So the report 7 that people have been working on throughout the weekend has been updated through all of the conversations last night. And so there are a few outstanding items that I think we hope to address today. And other than that, it's complete as far as messaging and whatnot. It's more getting graphs and formatting and citations and everything filled in. Suggestion by Bernadette to write a conclusion. I had put in a note that I didn't feel comfortable jumping in and doing that, given how well my executive summary went. And so if people want a conclusion in the report, then I leave that to the group. And that could always be added later. I mean, you could do all the report, but then work on that over the next week or something.
So we're still working on a moving target.
Well, we have to resolve some things today.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
But we have to resolve some things today.
Got it. But we have a draft.
Yes, we have a draft, but as is evidenced through, and this is kind of the role, the part of the conversation with the role of consultant, as evidenced by the executive summary, and that there are 8 different versions that went around this weekend, and there's no conclusion yet. I am hesitant to have writing by committee because I don't think we will ever complete this. So I think we need to have some true agreed upon resolution that some of this is going to have to be in Merritt's hand if this report is going to be finished.
Agreed.
Or we could agree to change the process.
Well, changing the process then, Joe, that leads to your question that I wanted to discuss about timeline. And as I've shared in the previous 2 meetings, the directive that I have been given is that since this council is the council that formed this task force, this council is the council that's going to hear the report. Council members will be off the council by the end of the year. And therefore, we need to present this report to the HRA on December 10th and to the City Council on December 15th. So with regards to changing the process, we tried changing the process, and I'm open to ideas, but we tried changing the process by having you all write the executive summary, and we still have no conclusion.
Well, I had a long conversation with Kevin Staunton, and our conversation was a good report is more important than a timeline. So, I mean, take that for what it's worth. I know you have had conversations with him as well, but that was the very, very distinct message that he gave me.
Stephanie, should we approve a modified, amended agenda and get into our meeting? I mean, we can discuss this, but should we?
Yes, I think we need to go through things a little bit systematically, or else we're going to stay spinning in circles for 2.5 hours.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Steve approves, but he's on mute. But my lip reading is sufficient. Steve, would you like? I'm unmuted you.
And then I'd like to make 2 amendments to the agenda. 1, I want to make a comment about my email yesterday, and 2, want to continue this discussion that Joe's having with Stephanie. Can I have a second for the amended agenda?
Second.
We have a motion to approve the minutes.
Move approval.
Okay. That was the second. All in favor?
Second.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
Approved. First, my comments yesterday. Mary, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
With a pre-apology in place, can you point out where my comment or the email attack on you?
That's putting her on the spot, Dan.
So that's totally,
Pretty uncomfortable situation.
No. Did you,
Yes.
you felt attacked? I want to apologize for it.
Are you asking if I felt attacked?
Yes.
Yes, and I did in the meeting last week.
When I said,
When you said that you felt that I was having sole discretion over this report and was deciding whether things would stay or go and ignoring what task force members were saying.
okay. So the feeling that you had sole discretion is not an attack on you. I should have been much more careful in my words about deciding who's and what's put in, and I apologize for that.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm not sure your sentiment has changed, though. I'm not saying it should, but
No.
yeah,
No. I don't know, but I shouldn't have said that.
yeah.
So I take it off the table. Okay. I do think you have sole discretion, but that doesn't mean you are biased in your discretion. Okay. So that's a different sentiment that came across last week, and that's what I'm apologizing.
Okay, thank you. We're modeling good behavior for us as a country moving forward.
So go ahead with what you were saying prior to the agenda being open.
I'd like to add to that. I think Stephanie's in a really tough position, and frankly, anybody that was doing what she's doing would be in that same tough position, given how we have set this up. And I don't care what lens they had or have, it would result in the same situation. The conversations would be different, or the topics might be different, but the process would be the same, and we would be, I feel, right where we are today. So, Meredith, I think you're in a tough position, and for whatever that's worth, I thought about that a lot as notes have gone back and forth, and my notes in particular. But I do believe personally that the way we've set it up, you end up with editorial right.
Yeah, if ever you have a report that's not written by committee, then the person that's doing the primary writing has a lot of discretion, but that's why you then invite review by people. And particularly my experience has been as a city staff person that, a consultant prepares a report based on whatever process they were involved in, and then city staff have final editing decision if it was a group that was convened by the city council.
I don't know that I agree with that.
Well, no, I'm saying that's my experience.
The task force report.
Could I missed what Meredith said. Meredith, would you say that again, please?
Yeah, I was just saying that's my experience. I'm not saying that that's.
Before you said that's my experience, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, that my experience has been if a city council puts together a task force, then city staff are the final entity that determines what the report looks like and what's in it before it goes back to planning commission or city council for review. If a consultant is hired, then the consultant typically prepares the report and then city staff review it, make the final decisions on what it looks like, and then it goes to planning commission or council. If a task force is on its own, then it's not something that's been formally convened by the city, and they can put stuff together and submit it to the planning commission or the city council, but that's when they're not they haven't been created by the city. So that's just been my experience working in a couple of places. you have to unmute yourself.
Since we do need to get some things done, should we go through the items in order? I mean, I know this is an active and live discussion, but I do want to make sure that we get some, I'm pretty task-oriented, and we need to be task-oriented today. Is it possible that we pull up the last version of the executive summary and try to, there's some issues in there that I think need to be resolved?
Yeah.
Norm?
Well, I think we have an issue on the table. Joe has brought up
The timeline.
timeline. And Merritt, I appreciate what you said. And Stephanie, I appreciate what you have said about submitting a document to a particular council. However, I think that's kind of a formality. I fully agree that we are all people of goodwill.
Right.
We've really struggled with this. We all come at it from different points of view. And but I fully believe that we will come to a compromise on all the things in front of us. And if we do not do that today, which I don't think we do, because I've got a number of open issues that, Merritt, you and I talked about yesterday. And I can't imagine that we would be able to resolve all those things. So unless we have a way of moving forward, and I want to make sure we have this thoroughly discussed, Scott, while you're on board here, I would be strongly in favor of saying, let's give ourselves about another month to really make sure that all voices have been heard and that we really have a document that does indeed, we all stand up and say, we may not agree with everything 100%, but we stand by the document in total. I don't think we're there right now.
Steve?
I understand what Norm is saying. I think on the other hand, and I speak just from my business career, in general, when you are given deadlines by the whatever power structure you're working in, those deadlines are serious. You have to have an annual plan completed by a date. You don't get to go before the board of directors and say, we simply were unable to come to a conclusion about what our annual plan should be for next year, so we would like to have another month to speak about that and debate it and bring it to you in a month's time. Would that be acceptable? Most board of directors would say, basically get your stuff together and get it done. We've had 18 months, which was a considerable extension over the original timeline that this group was charged with. So I think they've been very gracious in saying we've given you a lot of extra time. And frankly, I don't know that another month would enable us to resolve to everyone's satisfaction all the outstanding issues. So I think we have to at some point say, we've got to accept the deadline and we've got to move forward.
I appreciate Steve's analogy, but here's another one.
Well, Bernadette had her hand up.
Sorry.
Though.
Go ahead, Bernadette.
I feel like Norm was the most hawkish on the timeline and getting things done. And now that I feel like there's a faction of the group that the report isn't saying what that faction wants it to say. And so now it's like, whoa, let's put the brakes on because the report doesn't say what I want it to say. I mean, we've voted and fisted and debated and drafted and redrafted. And I agree with Steve. I don't think another month is going to get us there. And in fact, I feel like I'm going to double down. If you force this extension, I'm going to double down and be a lot less willing to compromise than I have been in the past, just because I'm sick and tired of all of this. I mean, my kids are out of school. I don't have any more time for this. I don't know how many times I have to say it. And I appreciate that some people have more time, but I don't. And I feel like I've put in hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and editing and reviewing and editing and providing comments. And there's a certain group on this task force that if the edits don't say what they want it to say, then they say, well, the process is flawed. This is that. They want to point the finger at everybody else. And the thing about it is maybe you're just in the minority opinion. Maybe other people don't agree with you. So I think there has to be a point where you just, okay, I voiced my opinion and no one else is getting on board with me. I accept the fact that I was not in the minority or in the majority on this, and that we need to move on. And, you know, you can call Kevin Staunton and every other contact that you have. To me, I think we've got to follow the process. We've got to do what we've got to get this done. I mean, we all agreed to 6 months up front. Then we agreed to an extension. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't like it. I'm frustrated by it. I feel like you guys some people have been extremely rude to Merritt and Stephanie. And I just, like, there's enough stress and negativity in the world that I don't want to wait. I don't want to spend my weekends with 15 emails and people accusing people. Like, no, we're done. This has got to be done. This has got to wrap up. The tone has gotten too nasty. I'm done with it.
Dan, you wanted to talk when Mary, nope. Okay. Tom, let me unmute you.
I have to agree with Bernadette. I don't have kids. I've got a far more flexible schedule, but I just find myself worn out by it. I think we're 7 very diverse people. And we've all had very different value systems and world experience and life experiences. If there's more to be done, then the next council can have Housing Task Force 2.0. I don't know if Stephanie could handle it, but that would be my recommendation. I know that I've probably been adding to the frustration because I tend to be at the 1,000-foot level, and a lot of you are at the 50,000-foot level or whatever those different levels are. But I agree with Bernadette. I was just feeling really upset. The report's not perfect in my mind, but it's never going to be perfect. I mean, we'd come up with 7 or 9 different versions of this thing, and even in my own head, I could come up with 2 or 3 different ones. So I think it's time to wrap it up, make sure that the technical things like addresses and citations are correct. And if the council wants more, then they can vote for it, or the new one can vote to do something. I'd be willing to try it again, but I think it's time to let the train leave the station.
Anyone else want to speak to this matter?
I am going to agree with, Steve's analogy. He summed it perfectly, and we need to move on.
Okay, then. Again, it's a majority of you, 4 of you, who are really advocating for sticking with the timeline, and that this, let's present this and the state that it is, or state that it will be by the end of the week, to the Planning Commission and HRC and the Foundation. They will provide their comments and feedback. We will reconvene after the HRC and Planning Commission and discuss their comments and feedback, and what of their comments and feedback will be incorporated into the report and what will not be, and discuss why it won't be, and put all their comments in their entirety in the addendum, and then move on to the
Stephanie, you cut out for a second on my computer. We'll make the presentation to planning and HRC, and then
the next morning we meet and we discuss their comments. If they have some major comments that they want to have included or excluded, you guys will discuss that and make a decision. Either at the fist of 5 seems to work because it takes away a little bit of the emotion. on whether or not to include in the report. And so that is another time when there will be some tweaks and amendments made to the report is
So they'll ask us, they'll
18th.
say, would you change this or would you change that? And then we'll discuss that the next day.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Correct. And if they say, we want you to change this, and you discuss the next day, say, we do not want to change this, we will add to the report what they recommended and reasons for not changing it as well. So major changes that they propose will need to be acknowledged. All the recommendations will be included as an addendum, but what you include in the body of the report will be discussed on the 18th. I keep looking up because that's where my calendar is. So I would suggest then, based on this conversation, that we proceed with the timeline that we have had established.
Well, that's what the majority wants to do, so we'll keep moving ahead.
Can we do a formal fist to 5 so it's in the record on the timing?
Sure can. So, because I can't see you, Joe, what's on the table is keeping to the established timeline. So fist to 5.
1, I think it's pretty. I think my comments are pretty clear. My reasoning is pretty clear. I'll give it a 1.
Yep. The rest of you, I can see you, so hands up. All right, but it will take me a while to write it down. 5, 5, 5, 4, 2, 1. Okay, we have 4 people that have 4 and above, and we have 3 that are 1s and 2s. So I would say the majority is to move forward, and I think we've already had our comments. We usually circle back for the 1s, but as Joe indicated, he said his piece. And Dan, I think you've expressed your piece as well. So can we move on?
Thank you. Move on.
Okay. The next item is the executive summary. There were lots of versions that went through over the weekend. I would like to share my screen with what I think is the latest that has Joe's comments, incorporates Norm's comments, Steve's, and Tom's with I don't have it in the body of the report, but I have some comments off to the side for some level of consideration that you can ignore, disregard, or have it play a piece in your final decision making regarding the executive summary. I would like to have this finalized today because this is the piece that you all wrote, and it just, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Here. Okay. Executive summary. All that's in black font was approved last Thursday at the meeting. What's in red are changes that Joe had introduced. Steve.
Can you expand the view, please?
Sure can.
Thank you.
Does that work, Steve?
That works great.
Okay. So in the second paragraph, we talk about the demographics, and Joe added, if the projected growth trajectory is realized, is likely by the end of 2040, there will be more multifamily units than single-family units, resulting in significant change to Edina. Is anyone opposed to that added language? I'm using opposed because I think that's probably more that would be support. But yes, Steve?
I would support everything except the last section in red. I don't know that we know what the change is. We've seen that same change happen over the last 20 years, so it's hard for me to say that Edina is going to change significantly as a result of that particular change. So I'm happy to indicate that there's going to be more multifamily units than single-family units. That's a true statement, or it's very likely to be a true statement.
Joe, you added this language. How do you feel about this being edited out?
I think so. If you look back at the past 20 years, there hasn't been significant change in Edina from a growth perspective. So I do believe that this represents significant change, and I would, because of that reason, I'd keep it in. I mean, if we're going from a community of single-family homes to a community of major change and having more multifamily homes than single-family homes, that's to me, that's significant change.
Joe,
And
has
the
there been
reason
any,
I want to point it out is so that I think that is a fact that the residents of Edina should know very clearly and very upfront. They can make their own decisions, but that's why I put it in there.
Merritt?
Yeah, I just, I ran the numbers again on the percentages for these different years. Since there was a question earlier in the report, so I ran them this morning from the Met Council data. In 1990, single family was 59%. And in 2019, it was 53%.
Again, what was it in 2015?
I don't have the number for 2015. It's not a census year, but they do have detailed numbers.
Yeah.
So 2010, it was 57. It went by the decades, 59% in 90, 58% in 2000, 57% in 2010, and 53% in 2019.
I think Joe's point is that even there's been a significant amount of multifamily development in the second half of the last decade. So he's just saying, and I mean, for my part, I'm all for more multifamily development in commercial nodes and around Southdale and Edina. I think it's fabulous for the city. Okay, but it is a significant change, and Joe's just calling out to the citizenry. It's a significant change. Doesn't mean it's bad. Doesn't mean it's good, but it is significant.
So Dan, I think if we said what you just said in our report, that multifamily homes was good in nodes and certain areas, then I'd be fine with removing it like Steve said. But we don't say that. So absent that, I would suggest we keep it in.
Let me add one more thing to there. I think Steve wanted to say something. The language I'd like to see is that's where the multifamily development should go. That's where the market calls it to go. But in me, it's got to go hand in hand with saying that nothing in this report is an indication that single family zoning should change. Go ahead, Steve.
please take out the language located in commercial
Okay.
nodes.
I was just,
Yeah, I know you're being responsive, but I'm happy at this point to just withdraw my objection. I think we've covered the ground. We'll let people read it and interpret it, as Joe said, as they want to interpret it. Some people will breeze right over and other people may seize on it, so we'll just have to live with that.
Just a quick note that I will update those percentages according to the data, and I can put in I can try to see if I can find 2015 data and put it in.
There's no reason to put in interim data that's being data selective. Let's use the data that's formally published by decade and let that for itself.
Okay.
all right, next, pardon me?
As long
The
as
next-
we acknowledge that change that's happened mid-decade.
It may not belong in there, but it is significant. I mean, things change dramatically in the second half. So it's not being selective and with your data.
We're doing the same thing. We're saying in 2010, there was a great recession, and we have not acknowledged the impact of that on the 2010 number. So we can't arbitrarily say, well, let's ignore the fact that there was a dramatic slowdown, but let's acknowledge the fact that post that slowdown, there was an increase. It's too much information.
There was very little multifamily development prior to 2010. Anyway, shall we move on to the next item?
The next paragraph, we added housing projections in Edina and other communities is guided by a process that starts with the Met Council. So just added the word projections. And then in 2020, the City Council approved the 2040 Comprehensive Plan supporting these growth projections.
Did we, this is just a question, did we decide on, I'm fine with language, but did we, what are we calling the comprehensive plan? Have we?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I thought with all the emails you were getting, that was one email I did not send. I talked to Carrie Teague, and Edina has been an outlier by calling it just by habit the title in which it was begun to be drafted, which is why informally we are calling it the 2018 draft or the report. But he said formally it is, in the eyes of the Met Council and the eyes of the rest of the world, the 2040 report. Unless, Scott, you have a strong opinion about this. He does not have a strong opinion about this. He's going to stay on mute. I just wanted to check with you.
Maybe we should just include a footnote in the executive summary that just maybe that history so that there isn't confusion for the comp plan wonks out there that have been tracking it as the 2018 plan, that they don't think that we're using some other document.
That's a
Excellent suggestion, and Merritt put her thumbs up, so she is going to do that. Although I will put an asterisk here now just to remind me. Okay, so you're okay with that, those little changes in the language, supporting these, and that the City Council supporting these growth projections, or acknowledging, or recognizing, or?
I hear no objections, so let's move on.
Okay, let's move on. All right, supply and growth. Now this has come up a few times. It used to say plan to accommodate forecasted residential growth. I know there was a question about deleting a word at all completely, plan to accommodate residential growth. There was some concern that by not having any word in there, just kept it open-ended, like anyone, come one, come all, and like unsustainable growth, you know, that you could put any word in there. So there was some concern that there should be a word. And I'm standing up to let my dog out for the 15th time.
I don't care either way, if projected or forecasted. I think the original draft said all forecasted residential growth, and then I think we got rid of the all to just forecasted, and then if we want to drop that too, it doesn't matter.
So my opinion is, it goes right back to the first one. I don't support this growth in Edina. So I was trying to recognize by removing the word forecasted, my way of saying I don't support that.
Is this one we should do a fist of 5 on? And the vote being for keeping the word projected.
Wait, before we do that, Joe, can you, I'm sorry, because you're on the phone, I'm having a hard time hearing you. Can you restate what you just said?
So personally, I don't support the level of growth that the forecast and the comp plan project. So it was my attempt at acknowledging that I don't support that kind of growth in Edina.
Okay.
So that's why I suggested removing it. I'm not opposed to some growth, but I think we've had pretty significant growth in the past 5 years, and that we should pause, see what it's going to do to our city, from a traffic perspective, from a city services perspective, and then reevaluate before we say we're going to add the number of housing units that we outline in the executive summary.
So how does projected, I'm not getting the nexus between you putting projected in there. What would you like it to say?
No, he took projected out.
Oh, got it. Thank you.
Joe wants plan to accommodate residential growth. There was concern by not having a word in there that it left it too open-ended, that even forecasted and projected has a limit on it, whereas having no word could be limitless, which is the opposite of what Joe was intending.
It could go both ways. I agree with that. Could also go to let's slow it way down. Or it could go to open up the floodgates. Right.
And I think there was some...
It would be the reader's discretion.
But I don't think that's the intent of you all, to have it be either stopping it to a trickle or opening up the floodgates.
Yeah, these are our three key principles. So we're not leaving this open for somebody to interpret on their own. This is our statement of what we believe.
How about because the beliefs are across the board, how about appropriate residential growth?
I don't like appropriate because I feel like it's a value statement.
Okay.
Janet, for some reason you're off mute, but I can't hear you. No, you're on mute. Try again. Plug it in.
Yeah.
Okay. Somehow I do bump my mute button on my headset. Sorry.
No problem.
I am fine with either projected or forecasted, because the fact of the matter is change is constant. It's just what degree. And yes, there may be artificially driven at some point. I don't know that we can control all the variables that will drive that. But we do have change. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of what degree. But I am comfortable with the word forecasted or projected.
Steve?
I've always thought that the operative word in this principle was plan. That rather than just let things happen, this task force says we're going to actually have a plan for this. We're going to try to give you some guidance going forward, because you've already set the number. You've already published your comp plan. The number is out there. It's been blessed by the city council, and before that by hundreds of different citizens who got involved in that process. So for us, we're simply saying we want to ensure that we are planful, that we give you more direction than was built into the comp plan itself. And that's, I think, what the city council asked for. We know we've got a comp plan, but we don't think it's complete in providing direction. So give us that direction. I don't think they asked us to change the numbers.
Could we add Janet's comments where we say something along the line in the executive summary that we recognize change is inevitable? What we struggled with as a task force was the rate. What is the acceptable rate of change in Edina, which should be further fleshed out by in the future. We don't even have to say how, right? That's, I think, the key here is the rate of change.
Here's how I would say this point Joe's making. Change is not inevitable. Some things don't change and they die out. But I think change is good. It just can't be too much change.
Unless you want to have a revolution because you want to overthrow the existing. I mean, that's your opinion. I mean, I think there's people that want a lot of massive change. So I think saying change is, as long as it's just a little bit of change is an opinion, is not that a fact.
Right. There's no fact on change, right? This is all our opinions. You might feel change is great, then we should have a lot of change. My opinion is different.
Exactly.
Yes. And it's okay.
Right.
We can have different opinions.
So Steve recommended the word planned.
No, I
Okay.
didn't recommend the word planned. I like projected or forecasted. And I think before the group has also said that we don't want a word like planned in there because that makes it sound too specific, too concrete, that we believe that the Met Council has given us a forecast. It's a number that we are to strive to get to, but it is not baked into concrete. It is not, you have to meet this or all your money will be cut off kind of number. So we should put something in there like projected or forecasted, which makes it something other than limitless residential growth. And, you know, I can't come up with a third word at the moment, but
Okay.
I'd love to.
Is it time to fistify this?
I think we need to fistify this because we have been talking about this for weeks, this particular word in this sentence. So this is to keep projected in. That is the question on the table. So
What's the vote if you don't care?
3. Uh, 5, 3 is Norm. Bernadette, 3. Joe, you want 2. Okay, we have, now, we have 3 5s, 3 3s, and a 2. So we have 3 people who don't care, 3 who strongly want it, and 1 who does not. I would say that that we keep it in.
Come on.
Because there's, all right.
Dan's on, he said something and I'm not sure what he said.
He's like, let's move on.
Said, those are the voting rules, so let's move on.
Additionally, other factors that influence the recommendation of the task force. On bullet 3, it was added, task force desires to support housing policy that is consistent with community drivers and the preservation of Edina as a suburb. So added the language. Steve.
I believe that the way that is intended to be interpreted is that it is not an urban city, it is a suburb. That goes directly against what is in the comp plan itself.
Whose language is that?
The added language is Joe's.
Well, let's ask Joe what he meant by it.
I meant just that. I believe, in my views, whatever it's rated, Edina is a suburb of Minneapolis. I meant it just as that, and it should remain a suburb. But I feel like Eden Prairie is a suburb. I feel like St. Louis Park's a suburb. I'm not an urban planner. I don't understand all those terms, and frankly, I don't care. I mean, it's unimportant to me. But I view Edina. I've always viewed Edina as a suburb.
I don't think we've spent a ton of time talking about this theme, I guess. So, you know, what these bullet points were things that we've really beaten the old dead horse over, like the community drivers and views and that sort of thing. And I don't think anybody would argue. I mean, I think the text of our document and the comp plan says that basically Edina is a hybrid with characteristics of both urban and suburban, depending on what part of the community that you're in. And I think there's people who see it, I would say if you ask most people, they would say, of course, it's a suburb of Minneapolis, not a standalone. But it's also technically the city of Edina. I don't know. To me, it just feels like it just muddies the waters. I think when we do talk about the community drivers, we do talk about the importance of the single family home, and it's in the single family home environment in the city. We need to call it out right here in executive summary, since it is not entirely consistent with the comp plan and some of the points made in the report. And we didn't really discuss it at length.
I mean, technically, Edina is a suburb, right? But whether or not, I mean, not to counter anyone's points.
Why don't you fist a five it?
You want to fist five it? All right. Let's go for it. Keeping this language in is what's on the table. Task Force desire to support housing policy that is consistent with community drivers and the preservation of Edina as a suburb, keeping it in. So 1, 2, 1, 4, 5. Who did I miss? Joe, you want it? 5. Tom, I'm missing 2. All right, so we have 2 1s, 2 2s, which is 4, and then 3 that want to keep it in. So the majority voice is to take it out.
Next.
Okay. The next section, based on all the contributing factors and after further communication review by City Council and city residents that was taken out, this task force recommends the following top 5 priorities if housing and growth are supported by residents. So I added a comment on that I thought the ship had sailed, that the comp plan includes growth. It was written by residents. There were over, I put 1803, that was not correct. It's supposed to be 183. So there were not over 1,000 meetings. Of public meetings where residents could provide input and was voted on by the city council more than once. So that was just some background information about if housing and growth are supported by residents. But, so this paragraph, it was to take out city residents here and was adding if housing is supported by residents.
So what's the vote? Either keep it as it is or take it out? What are we voting on?
Let's say we are voting on the changes. Bernadette, 1.
What are we voting on again? I apologize.
We're voting on the proposed changes to take out
These
and
numbers
city residents
and
there and adding if housing and growth are supported by residents. We're voting on keeping that in. Steve, 1. Tom, 1. No, Dan, 1. Norm, 5, and Joe, 5. Okay, the deleting win. All right.
keeping.
Pardon me?
We're keeping all these numbers. We're not redebating this, right? We're keeping all these numbers.
This is not, I don't think this is debatable because you already voted on this last Thursday. This whole thing was already voted on last Thursday. So these, we're not revisiting something that has already been decided.
And what are the asterisks?
The asterisks relate to the asterisks at the bottom. You guys, oh, where'd they go?
Yeah, they disappeared. The first asterisk is for Metropolitan Council, and the 2 asterisks refer to the Maxfield study.
Could you repeat that, Steve? I didn't understand that.
So the first number, this is something that we wanted to clarify because we recognize we were using 2 different sources. There may be a more elegant way to do this, but the first number comes from the Met Council. That's the projection or the forecast from the Met Council. And then the others are based on the Maxfield study research.
Those are the citations we asked for. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will have to fix that. Okay, so then this, the task force recommends the following next steps to the city council. Solicit additional input from city residents. It is recommended the city council utilize and expand. And then we took out, and staff work with the National Research Center for Preparation. I don't think we can recommend a specific company. The city has a whole process for how they select vendors through a bidding process and through this whole process. I do not think it's appropriate, but that's my opinion, for you to recommend a specific company to do a survey. The quality of life survey of Edina residents in 2021 to obtain statistically valid feedback from a larger sample of residents specific to the question of growth in Edina as noted later in the report. I said please see comment above because I think that ship has sailed. So what's on the table here is, well, there's two things. One, if you are okay with not recommending a specific company to do the survey because the city has a process for selecting vendors, and whether or not we want the question of growth on the survey, and that whether or not you want to recommend that question on the survey.
Can I just comment? I think what we had agreed to earlier was that we were going to ask questions specific to this, report, not necessarily on growth per se. I mean, to me, I feel like it certainly could include questions about growth, but I don't know if it needs to be specific to the question of growth because that's not the only thing that this report covers. So I feel that's perhaps limiting the scope of the questions and my understanding of what we agreed to when we shifted away from the idea of doing our own survey to incorporating it with quality of life survey. So I guess I support the idea of not recommending a vendor. To me, that seems, I don't know, who cares? The second one is I think it's a little bit too limiting. I don't care if you ask about growth, but I think there should be the opportunity to ask about other things as well.
Norma, I thought we identified 3 specific topics that you wanted questions added about, and those are further in the report. So I agree with Bernadette. It feels like there's more than one thing that you were trying to have questions added about, and I support the idea of doing that.
That is correct. And we have that in the body of the report. I hope it's still there.
Yeah.
So can we expand that instead of saying growth, say growth or housing and growth?
Well, can't we just refer to the part later in the report? I mean, can't we just say what was there as noted later in the full report?
Yeah, we just need to confirm to Norm's point that it's still in there, that somehow through this editing process we didn't lose that. But yes.
I'd be fine with that. And I'm also fine with removing any reference to a specified vendor.
All right, so
as long as it's in the report.
All right, so get rid of specific to the question of growth.
Yes.
Okay.
And add as identified further in the report, or Steve, you.
Yeah, it's already in there.
It's in there, okay. Yeah.
As I read the body of the report, I do not see the 3 things that we identified previously. So I would stipulate that I can add those original 3 things back in, working with Merit. Is everybody in agreement with that?
What were the 3 things?
Merit has her hand raised.
I'm thinking they might have been put into the goal 5 that was decided not to be used, so they could be pulled back out and put somewhere else in the report. I can't remember what they were though. But I can work with Norm to make sure they're in there.
I'm all for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last bullet for the recommendations, again, adds the question, if residents support affordable housing growth and choose the whole affordable housing goals of 992. The City Council has already approved these goals at a recent City Council meeting. So I think, considering that the City Council has already approved that, it begs the question of what the purpose of it being put in here as it is.
I recommend removing it.
I agree.
Tom agrees.
So are we doing a formal fist to 5?
We can do a fist to 5 for this. Wait, I'm running out of room on this piece of paper. Okay. All right, fist to 5 on keeping this language in. Trying to be consistent with the other questions. Fist to 5 on this language. 1, 1, 1, 1, 3, 1. All right, it's out.
For the record, put me down as a 5.
Yep, I have you down.
In my mind, it's just all about communicating to the residents at large so that they understand all of this. That's why I keep adding language like that.
All right, understood. Task Force recommends that the goals and recommendations should be thoroughly reviewed with the residents of Edina when public health conditions allow, and pause until this can happen. I think we took this away within our beginning vote, that we're not pausing. So I don't even think we need to have a vote.
Okay.
Take out the word pause and leave in the rest.
Well, it says review with the residents of Edina when public health conditions allow, and that was original language.
Yeah, period.
Okay. I'll fix that later because there's too many changes in there and it will get lost. Okay, what kept getting lost was some of Tom's language, and he wanted, based on discussions at the regional and state level, there may be greater priority and allocation of resources to build and locate affordable housing in areas that provide more opportunities for lower income households. I believe you guys already approved that at last Thursday's meeting.
I don't recall approving it, but
I don't recall either. What was the context of it?
Yeah, it was approved at the last Thursday's meeting because Tom, it was in his edits that when we approved the paragraph, it was put in.
I don't recall that. I suggest we do a fist to 5 on that.
Okay.
Can I offer a modification?
Please do.
If we just said based on discussion at regional and state level, there may be a greater priority and allocation of resources to build affordable housing. Which
Oh,
seems
that's right.
to be
You
a true
wanted to
statement.
delete that.
I'm okay with that.
Because that seems to be true. We just saw that happen in the bonding bill.
Oh.
Can I make a comment about that? The reason I put in areas of greater opportunity is there's always a struggle between where to put affordable housing on a regional basis. And do you put it in the cheap neighborhoods and redevelop the areas that have a lot of problems already? Or do you put the affordable housing in areas where there's perhaps more employment, more opportunities, a variety of things? And this is a struggle that's gone on for decades. It's not necessarily, so I could see that if the state or regional funders say, hey, we're going to put a project in XYZ suburb over North Minneapolis, that gets a priority in our funding decisions. So I'm just saying that since a big issue was made out of opportunities of where low-income residents live, you know, that those locations have limited opportunities, other funders may decide, no, we're going to go to spread out the affordable housing. So that was really my point of that phrase. So I just wanted to make that point. Whether you voted in or out, that's up to you. But I just wanted to convey my understanding and share that with you, why I put that phrase in.
That makes sense.
So, Tom,
I still don't understand why. I mean, I'm fine with the language, I guess, with the opportunities for low income. Again, I'm a less words versus more words person, especially in the executive summary. So I don't feel like, because I think it conveys it, but I don't think this sentence is in the right place at all. It's like in the.
Oh, you went on mute again. Wait, hold on. Let me unmute you. There you go.
I don't think that it's a spot for it. So I think that sentence should be in there somewhere, but I don't think it should be in between on top of the pandemic in a year marked by social unrest. Both of these events, it's like completely inserted in a random spot. So I think it needs to be pulled out into a different area.
Can we delegate to Bernadette? Do you want to take on where it should go?
Not, I mean, or how about do that offline?
I mean, yeah, we can do that offline. I just feel like I think part of the reason why the second sentence keeps getting muddled and mixed up is because we completely agreed to this last sentence on Friday. Everybody was like, it was like a choir of angels was singing, and now it's all like marked up again. And I feel like it's because this other sentence was added there, and so it makes sense.
Okay, so I move to another spot. And then both these events were acknowledged by the task force and occurred after the Maxfield study had been completed. However, it's too early for the task force to obtain information or understanding the full ramification of each event regarding the future of housing in Edina for seniors and low-income households. Are you okay with keeping that in? Because actually, I don't know if that's an issue. I just wanted to highlight it because we already approved it on Thursday.
I like the old language better. I don't like this language.
Oh. What was the old?
Which is fine by me.
I guess, Bernadette, I just felt the other language kind of said we approved something, and I just didn't feel like we have enough information to approve. I know we talked about it, and I think we're sensitive that this is an issue. These two things will have an impact or could have an impact. I just thought the way it was written, it kind of said that somehow we approved it or we did.
I'm fine with expanding it because I feel like the language is written kind of talks more about my housing for seniors and low-income households. To me, that sounds like it's more from the COVID lens, versus the George Floyd lens. I don't know. I mean, to me, I feel like the point is we were acknowledging that these events had occurred and they contributed to our analysis, but we had not concluded anything. It's just they contributed to the concepts in which we've discussed and evaluated the future of housing in Edina. I mean, we've made our recommendations and conclusions. We've all just voted that we have to finish this report. We're not going to keep it open for further study and.
Oh, I wasn't implying that, or I didn't mean to imply that. If you want to cut it off regarding the full ramification of each event and then put a period there, that's fine. That's all. I just wanted, that was.
I would put the period after housing in Edina. So you say the full ramification of each event regarding the future of housing in Edina. That's what we're charged with talking about. So we're just saying we can't do anything with the information yet. It's too soon.
That's fine with me.
I'm fine with that.
Any other comments? Are we okay with this? All right. Then I think this was just cleanup. The overarching goal of this report is to provide recommendations across many housing issues that exist today that will keep Edina healthy and thriving over the next decade. Problems, concerns.
Let's move on.
Revolution. Okay. We have an executive summary.
Okay, see you next week.
Woohoo! Okay.
We have a taskmaster in Stephanie.
Oh, but we are not done. Justifying. Revised goal number 4. And I don't know how to make this larger. I will, can you read it? Let me see if I can, where's my view on here? I don't know if I have view on my email. I don't know where to put it. It is.
I think it's on settings, but.
I'm not finding it.
Why don't you do, I put this in the report if you open the report.
Okay. Locked version?
No, the edit version.
Edit version.
Excuse my fumbling. All right, Tom, nope, that's not Tom. Steve, I'm putting you on mute. This is only 25 pages long. Oh no, there it goes. All right. Sorry for this slowdown, folks. I'm getting there as fast as I can.
I just wanted to add, there are a couple things to go over as far as changes and goals and recommendations. And there was also a suggestion from Joe for the title, that instead of it saying advancing housing priorities for Edina, it would say, I have to go back, something different. And so I want to make
He was
sure.
saying identifying.
Right. So that'll be something for later. I just want to make sure we agree on the title.
Okay. So the new, despite the formatting, which I may have just done, the new goal 4 was worked on by Steve and Tom over the weekend.
Please zoom in a bit.
Oh, that one.
Can you just scroll up so you can see what the actual goal statement is, and then these are the strategies underneath it?
Yeah, let me see if I can get to 175. Encourage sustainable design and technology in all new and substantial rehabilitation housing is the goal. So we had already approved the and substantial rehabilitation is new language. So the new strategies are encourage alternative energy sources, including solar, water, wind, waste material, and geothermal. Promote active and passive energy efficiency in the design and placement of buildings and trees, and education of property owners regarding weatherization and energy efficiency. Require shadow studies on new or replacement housing structures to ensure active and passive solar energy use by adjacent properties is not adversely impacted. Promote water conservation by homeowners and housing property owners through education about water conserving appliances, fixtures, and reusing wastewater. Support mitigation of water runoff by encouraging use of rain gardens, rain barrels, cisterns, permeable driveways, walkways, appropriate building landscape design. Frequently review housing codes and policies to incorporate new technology regarding alternative energy sources, more energy efficient building practices and conservation. And finally, promote new construction and substantial rehabilitation projects to obtain LEED certification from the U.S. Green Building Council or equivalent certifications. So we took the 3 pages that had a lot of detail, including dual flush toilets, and it was whittled down to these 7 statements that follow more in line with the previous 3 goals. Because when we did the fist to 5 on the detailed goal 4, it failed, but you had already supported in July having the goal 4. So this was trying to massage it and make a compromise of it. So we're going to fist to 5 goal 4.
Can I say one thing here?
Sure.
Out of respect for the work Tom's done, I'm going to vote for this. But item 7 increases the cost of building housing significantly.
Actually, Dan, I agree. The certification process can be really, really, really expensive.
Not only the process, what you have to do to the building. But that said, I will vote to support this.
Are we talking about LEED certification?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no longer. It no longer carries the weight that it did years ago. In fact, people and architects are going away from LEED certification, and builders. There are better ways to promote sustainability. And I think my only caution would be in this, and trust me, I think sustainability is so important, is when we identify specific areas of sustainability, it's such a changing field. And so many things are coming up in different manners of sustainability that will likely leave some out. So I'm not sure I would be specific where I say wind, solar, waste. I think those are all great ideas, but they could exclude innovation. And I would remove the LEED bullet.
Is there a new certification, Joe?
I was just talking to my buddy over at Mortensen about this, and they're not going for a certification, Steve, but they're very cognizant of sustainability in general in their design and build approach. And that's just their company.
To your comment about the speed at which this area is changing, that's why number 6 is in there, to frequently review housing codes and policies to incorporate new technology, et cetera, et cetera. So we're trying to acknowledge that, yeah, this is a fast-moving area.
I just want to echo what Joe said. That not many people go through the certification unless it's a really big project, because the certification process is expensive itself. But instead, codes, when they put this kind of thing, will refer to, like Stephanie, I think, was just saying, to follow, LEED standards or something like that, but not to obtain certification.
About leading industry standards.
Yeah, I mean, I will admit that my information is a little dated, obviously, and Joe knows a lot more about this whole subject. So if there are some other way of expressing kind of all the different steps for energy conservation, or however you want to put it, sustainability, I just, if there's something, and I tried to use the words and promote and encourage as opposed to required. So I'm fine with something like that.
So I, number 3 had require. You're on mute now, Tom.
Number 3, I'd like to stick to require because you are talking about people who have already designed a house around an issue, and then somebody wants to build a big barn next to them.
Okay. So on number 7, I just changed it to promote new construction and substantial rehabilitation projects to follow leading industry standards.
Can you say industry sustainability or energy conservation? I'm not sure which is the proper language, but something that specifies industry sustainability or energy conservation. Joe may be the one who can tell us which language makes the most sense.
Oh, why don't you use both? Or energy conservation.
Sustainability is broader than energy conservation. So if we want it broad, use the word sustainability. If we want to talk specifically about energy conservation, you can use that term.
Can we use leading sustainability and or energy conservation standards?
Well, sustainability would cover energy efficiencies.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's
Okay.
as Bernadette said, let's keep it short. So.
Okay. All right. With these changes, should we fistify this?
We need to have the word industry.
Oh, industry sustain. Oh, I thought that I was replacing it.
Industry leading. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, if I could write.
Yeah.
In. Okay. All right, I'm gonna mute the jittery Tom. There we go. Let's specify with this. So I took out the lead language and just industry to sustainability standards. So it's not lead and there's no certification. So bullet 7 or number 7 has been changed. With these changes, okay, Tom is a 5, Steve is a 5, Dan is a 5, Janet is a 5, Norm is a 5. Joe?
I'm fine. 5 is
Okay, so Bernadette is off camera, but we have 6 5s. So if Bernadette gave it a 1, sorry, ma'am. We have 5. Woohoo! We have a goal 4.
Thank you, Tom.
I still want to free the clotheslines.
Yeah, well, Tom, you and I are going to have to go on our own little mission here. Okay.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Could you just scroll back up just a little bit? I want to make sure we don't have the goal statement repeated twice.
Encourage sustainable design and technology in all new and substantial rehabilitation housing. Consider incorporating reasonable, environmentally sustainable site design and building practices for new housing and substantial rehabilitated housing.
Yeah, do we need that A statement at all? We've got the goal and then we have our strategies.
Oh, yeah. We don't need to say it all, right? Because we there aren't subsets.
Yeah, I think we can eliminate that.
Oh, when we make each of those items A, B, C, D, E?
Right.
Yeah, that's, well, the ones above it are numbered.
Yeah, these are numbered, but they're under, yeah, they're under B.
Yeah.
So it'd be A, B, C, D,
E. I'm okay with that. That's.
Yep, that's, we don't need, since there's not another one. All right, we, from our agenda, we've done the executive summary, we've done goal 4, we've talked about the email, we've talked about the timeline. We've touched upon misalignment of thought, that we have 7 unique individuals with 7 experiences, and that you may not all 7 be 100% totally on board with every word in the report. But this exercise of going through the executive summary, I think, shows that it's a challenge. It's messy. Compromise is messy and challenging. And so how do we proceed with letting Merit Free to finalize? What?
There are
Go.
a couple things that still have to be tended to.
Oh, please do.
One is the title of the report. Joe suggested a different word. And then there had been, I just want to resolve that there had been discussion about the section on past attitudes and housing policy and whether to refer to the color of law and whatnot. And
right.
It had been my understanding from the last meeting that that had been resolved with 4 people supporting keeping that section. But I just want to make sure that that conversation is tied down in this meeting.
I lost track here. I thought we were just concluding that we were done with the executive summary. You seem to be talking about other content in the...
Yeah, sorry.
We're moving on.
Yeah, I thought that Stephanie was trying to wrap up the meeting. Yes, this is elsewhere in the report.
You weren't trying to wrap up the meeting, were you?
Me? No, I was going through the fact that we went through our agenda items, but we do have, since this is one of our last meetings, we do have to make sure that we get all these other issues resolved. Now, I do want to say, Scott's hopping off. Are there any things that we want to make sure in the next 4 minutes that he is party to or listens to, or are there any questions for him before he jumps off?
Before he jumps off, we should vote on the change in the title.
Okay. So I have advancing or identifying housing priorities for Edina. So the past 4 months, we've been just advancing housing priorities for Edina. Joe brought up, I think, was it Joe, you said, that wanted identifying housing priorities for Edina.
Let's do a quick vote, because I would ideally like Scott on when we talk about whether to include the color of law reference, because it's been such a big debate.
Why don't we jump to that? We'll come back to the title.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we have in here background information, and we talked about we've had the visitor from Mapping Prejudice come and speak with you all. We watched a video, and we had the George Floyd incident that highlighted, it wasn't a brand new, but it highlighted some of, I think I went too far, some of the issues that society is facing. And so we have a section in here about where have we been, and we had a map created showing where all the racial covenants are in Edina, this section. So the questions were raised, and we thought it was put to rest about whether or not this section has a place. Norm has brought up why we are including this section. And we understood that it was a majority of people wanted this section in, but it keeps getting raised. So we need to come to understanding and resolution.
And you have pointed out in the past, Stephanie, that you believe that the HRRC will ask specifically about this topic if we don't include it.
Yeah, but I don't speak for them. I mean, we'd find out on the 17th. I know that they have met with an Edina resident who is very concerned about the fact that there's these racial covenants still on properties in Edina. They are not enforceable, but other communities Golden Valley's taking the lead on this, but other communities are following about working on getting these removed, because whether or not they're enforceable, they're symbolically impactful.
If you want language in here saying the city should do something to remove them, I'm fine with that.
But it goes beyond that. It goes on. It's related to. It's symbolic and part of a larger puzzle regarding racial exclusion that has happened throughout history, and then economics and income became a proxy for race when race was no longer legal to exclude by race. And so it is part of the history. And so, I'm just trying to digest what people that wanted this in have been saying.
Okay, so one small point, Stephanie. People historically have by class segregated themselves. That does not mean they're racist. It may be a good thing, it may be a bad thing. It does not mean they're racist.
Steve.
At this point, I think we've given Scott, our manager Neil, enough background information on why we were even thinking about this. Can we get his perspective on whether he believes this is something that we have to deal with or not?
Well, yeah. Is the question, is the point of view that because these clauses exist in these deeds that Edina, that those property owners have an obligation to do something? What is the, I mean, in terms of just providing background about what's Edina's history with regards to housing, yeah, I think that's a notable piece of Edina's housing history. But is there an attempt to say, because this happened, Edina has an obligation specifically related to this issue going forward into the future? Is that what's being implied?
I don't think we drew any implication from this section, which was one of the arguments for why is it here if we're not using it as a basis for one of our recommendations. Why does it exist? And I think it was going back to just what we were discussing in the executive summary. The killing of George Floyd has raised, obviously, people's awareness of a lot of issues related to race. And so the feeling was we need to do something to respond to that. So we responded by putting in information. We did not use it as the basis for any recommendation.
Janet.
Yes. Just to help Scott understand why I personally say this needs to stay in the report. It needs to stay in the report because it informs what our report is going to do. As we are advancing housing, the historical context is important. The covenants are no longer enforceable, but they still have a very powerful role to today. When we look at this map today, you can see in the sections where the covenants were in place in the 30s, those areas still remain segregated to today. When you look on the other side, these portions of Edina where we didn't have covenants, those are diverse, both in income, racial, all the other designated diversity attributes are significantly present in that. So trying to cover up by ignoring that piece, we are not doing justice to racial equity in our community. So I say we leave it in because we are talking about advancing housing for all of us in Edina. So it is an important historical context to have in place. I did happen to hear a little bit of someone who was talking about a caste history, and I'm going off on the deep end here, but just in the context of trying to say I inherit a home from my grandfather. Well, that home will have its quirks. It may be on a foundation that was weak or whatever, but that foundation still is what I'm going to build on, whatever. So until I fix that foundation, that house is still going to be in some skewed way, in a way. So what I am trying to say is we have inherited the covenants that were put in place whenever, and they still continue to shape how we function, both economically, accessing education, and how we live today. And so acknowledging that it is there, it's an invisible thing, it's not actively enforced, but it is an invisible hand that still has active restriction of how we are living today. So I insist we leave it in place just to inform context of where we are going. Not that the homeowners need to do anything. They don't need to take the covenants out. I'm not asking the city to remove those. No, they are part of the history of that property. They stay. We just need to know that they are still in play, whether we are acknowledging it actively or not, they still have an influence.
Could we ask the city to remove them? Could we recommend, so if listening to Janet, right, acknowledging them versus saying, hey, these are wrong, get rid of them. Why don't we just say, if we believe that these are wrong, that the city, we make a recommendation that the city work to remove these covenants?
Let me say something. I don't think that's Janet's point. Janet's point is whether they're removed or not, the impact of them being there at some point still exists. But let me go back to Joe's point. You can get rid of them if you want to. The city can't do anything about it. They don't control the deeds, but the individual homeowners can have them taken off if they want.
It's probably a couple $1,000 in legal to get it done. We've had, it's probably somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 in simple legal costs and interaction with the county to have that done. We've had that discussion before with a group of local attorneys.
Per household or in general?
Per parcel.
I just want to call back, the question on the table is whether to remove this section of the report that talks about this history.
So I want to make a comment on Janet's thing. An alternative explanation for for where people of different ethnic groups and races live in Edina is more based on the value of homes than on the covenants.
Well, I think you missed the point, Dan. The thing is, yes, economics do play in place. And slavery and who was considered property, and that played a role in the economics of how our country is built to today. And it still significantly has a place into today. So trying to say it's based on economics and we can separate that is totally inaccurate. I mean, our country the hand of economics has played a role. When I was considered property, it enhanced the master wealth. So I was auctioned off on a block based on my strength in order to say, how much can I get out of this? It played a role. We cannot deny that fact. So I'm not shallow anymore, but it still has a significant impact to today.
That's where
all I'm saying, we just want to acknowledge that so we can know the reality we are operating in.
I'm going to let you know, Scott has to go on a call. I will report back. He's late now for his call by 8 minutes, so I will report back to him.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
I would like to say, I think going from the perspective of history of Edina in particular neighborhoods as a white enclave, and there's no denying it in the sense that it's in the deeds, it's only supposed to be white people living there. I think that is an important act to acknowledge and then say, that was once part of the history. It does impact the land uses and the development of the city over time. However, we recognize that. We are challenging that future. You know, we know that that is the past, but that's not the future that we want, and that we want the city to various quadrants and all neighborhoods to be open to whoever chooses to live there. And by choosing to live there, that might mean affording to live there, right? I mean, in certain neighborhoods, it's extremely expensive to live there. No matter what the color of your skin is, if you have the money, you should be able to live there. And we're supportive of that. And in the same way, so I guess, you know, to me, I think it's an important to acknowledge that history, and I think it would be, I think it's a paragraph and a map on. I mean, we're not devoting the entire report to it, and I think that, to Janet's point, and to other people who may have felt excluded or not included or don't see themselves as, you know, part of the history of Edina, that we're intending to change the future as we pivot and look forward. So I think it has to stay in.
I'd like to make the point, first of all, Merrick, thank you very much for the time yesterday. I thought we had a very fruitful discussion, and so I thank you for that. At the end of the discussion, I stated that I certainly support the inclusion of the mapping prejudice paragraphs in the report. I did add two other points, and that is, first of all, this section was followed by two paragraphs that discuss the video by Sightline, and the point of that video runs directly contrary to Bernadette, what you just said. And so I would like to submit that those two paragraphs, more than anything, I think run counter to the sentiments of most residents here in Edina. It's talking about walling off communities on the basis of economics. And I think it just doesn't resonate. The other thing is that's followed by a couple of paragraphs talking about the accomplishments in Edina that Edina's made in addressing the wrongs of the past. If anything, I would say it's more of a list of activities. And my personal preference would be to have language that would be more of a full-throated endorsement of the work that's been taking place in Edina that sets the stage for the future to make Edina a better location. So those are my 2 points.
Merritt.
Stephanie, I don't know if you want to share screen again. It's pages 34 to 36.
Yep, I could do that. I will say that that zoning and addressing zoning, it's on the work plan for the Planning Commission to address zoning that is exclusionary, and to look at zoning through a race and equity lens. So it's an active, alive, today activity that is occurring. Recently, in fact, this past fall, they changed the ordinance regarding 2-stall garages because they realized that the very fact of having a requirement for 2-car garages was exclusionary and was keeping people out of Edina. Because if you bought a house that had a 1-car garage and you wanted to do any remodeling that required like getting a permit, you had to update your garage to a 2-car garage, which added $40,000 onto rehab costs. So that was an exclusionary requirement that they have changed. So they are looking at things. They are looking at lot width. They are looking at all those things because all those were considered exclusionary. So it is alive and well, and being whittled away at. So it's not just ancient history. Here is the section. It does start on page 33, past attitudes and housing policies. Merritt is on mute. I don't know.
Keep scrolling. It's the paragraph starting in Edina and the following paragraph, understanding.
And I just anecdotally, I was trying to get an affordable home built in an infill lot, and it crashed and burned, and because of neighborhood outrage.
I would have to
So,
say that we're on this task force because we represent different points of view, and
right.
the video expressly talks about the need for lot splitting so that there can be more people that can enter on a lower economic basis. And I think that does not apply to all sections of Edina. And I think that on a widespread basis, that certainly would not be supported by most residents.
Mary, you're on mute.
Yeah, when Norm and I chatted yesterday, I explained that the video was in here as illustrative of how zoning can be limiting. So it's supposed to be background information that gives examples. It's not supposed to be implying that Edina is doing it, and it's not supposed to be implying what the remedies are. It's just background information. So it's just, do we have the video in there as background information because that's helpful, or do we take it out and figure that there's enough of an explanation?
Are we trying to say here that anything that makes housing more expensive is exclusionary?
All this is saying is that.
No, I know what that's saying. I'm just overall, are we, because everyone's brought up some examples. So if we, like a 2-car garage, makes it more expensive. So are we saying that anything that makes housing more expensive is exclusionary?
I don't think that's really true, because there are some things that make housing more expensive, but it serves a benefit, like more insulation or energy conservation.
Well, let's hope all that serves a purpose, but it makes it more expensive, right?
It does, but I think it's a balancing act between what's the greater good. Do you want to have houses that burn easily and set the whole neighborhood on fire? Yeah, those are, a tar paper shack.
I'm not arguing, Tom, I'm not arguing against them.
Yeah.
I just want to know, are we saying that things that make housing more expensive, does that mean they're exclusionary?
I'm just saying that I think we have to weigh, why do we have these extra things? Do we really need it?
I get it. That's not my question. Does anything that makes housing more expensive, is it exclusionary?
What if people answer yes or no, how will that further this decision?
Well, if it's yes, then every regulation we have in Edina is exclusionary, and that's preposterous.
Okay,
right?
How does it relate to the question of whether or not this video should be included in the report as a reference background information on how?
I'm sorry, Merritt. I was talking about the whole section.
Okay.
I want to say that for a long time, long before I even thought about living in Minnesota or Edina, the whole thing about large lot requirements, whether it's a half acre or 5 acres, these all have real implications regarding affordable housing, environmental issues. Granted, splitting lots may or may not actually make the land affordable. It may just be that, more wealthy people can cram into the same neighborhood. We saw that in the Siddell division in Morningside, where that probably raised the average value of a Morningside house. It was a 4-acre lot that was subdivided into, I think, 7 parcels. I've been in neighborhoods in other parts of the country with very, very tiny lots, but location, location, location makes it very valuable. This whole area, you know, the deed restrictions in Country Club, no offense to Bernadette, you know, that was kind of what gave Edina that cake eater image. It wasn't Morningside, it wasn't some of the other areas. It was it wasn't just race either. It was the exclusivity, the economic implications of that. Now those days are gone. You know, and recently I had an appraisal on my house. They used properties in Country Club. I was shocked. But
you know, I'm sorry. I just know that there's we're crunched for time. So
yeah, anyhow, I just want to say that I support keeping this whole discussion in the report, and it's race, it's class, and it talks about the history. I think it's important to some of the people in this group.
I think that this is part of the area that has not received sufficient discussion. Obviously, we're up against 10 minutes, so I will let it go. I don't agree with this section. I'll let it go. I do request, though, that the following paragraphs provide more of an enthusiastic approval of the actions that Edina is and has been taking to correct the rights of the past.
Steve?
My comment may not be necessary after what Norm just conceded, but I would say that the first paragraph that starts with in Edina, if we take out this video by Sightline Institute explains, just take out that whole sentence, then the rest of it is just a set of factual statements. And I agree with what Norm said about let's go beyond that and be a little bit more positive about the actions that are being put in place by Edina. And I also, to be honest, the idea of having people have to link to a video in order to get a point that we're trying to make seems a little obscure. So I would just take it out. I don't think it's terribly material to the recommendations that we're making. So I'm okay with the paragraph as you've just modified it. And I think Norm would have.
We could also put it in the appendix if that is a compromise.
True. Is this okay? This paragraph, I mean, some of the words will need to be reworked because it's referencing something that's not there. Yeah, it was intended as an educational piece, but fine.
And again, I would summarize it and take action, or at least make a recommendation that, or a comment that these can be changed, these covenants can be changed, and we would recommend that they are changed or removed. That's what I would do. Recognizing Janet's comments and points, which I think are right on, but also recommending action as opposed to just acknowledging this point. I'll be honest, it's the first thing when I read this section, the first thing I did was looked at the map to say, oh, does our title have this in it?
Are people okay with a sentence being added as Joe's proposed in the section that talks about covenants, that the task force recommends that remaining covenants be removed from property records?
Can we have two votes? Can we have a vote that says we want to keep it in the document or not? Maybe a second vote on whether we want to move it to the appendix or not. And then deal with what you just said, Merritt. Should we add some action statements at the close?
Steve, are you suggesting moving just the video reference to the appendix?
No. I thought the idea of the proposal was to move the whole section to the appendix. And yeah, I mean, that's what I want to have a vote on. Do we keep it in the document? One, if we say no, we don't want it in the document, then we want it in the appendix would be vote 2. And then there's the final vote on, do we want to add some action statements? And Norm has proposed some other editing, so we've got some additional editing that needs to be done anyway.
My thought was to just move the video to the appendix. You know, or for further information, go to the appendix, but that was my point.
Steve has recommended some edited form of the paragraph, removing the reference to sightline. And Stephanie, you typed that in as we were speaking, and I think that is a very appropriate resolution.
So, should we vote on the whole section? Should it be in the body of the report?
By the whole section, you're referring to
everything that's the map, everything that's relating to this topic. So
okay. I vote to retain the whole section in the body of the report.
Okay. I do as well, so I think it's a 5.
As edited or as it stands?
As removing the video. Well, we already have 4 5s. And we have 6 5s. Oh, no, we have 4 5s. 1 1. And I don't know what Joe's number is.
Mine would be that we edit it down and put it in, that some of it remains so that we acknowledge and keep the key point in, but using less words and put deeper background information in the appendix. So what would that be, a 3 or 2?
Yeah, I think we have a majority that keeps it in the body of the report anyway.
Okay.
Joe just wanted the votes on record, though, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, Joe, are you a 3 or a 2 or?
Put me as a 2.
Okay. Then how about to that section, should there be one sentence added that says that the task force recommends or suggests that remaining covenants on the books in Edina be removed from property records?
I support that. I do a 5 for that.
Can you know, if there was some way it could be done without cost to the homeowner, that would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I can think of a lot of other ways to spend $2,000 or, you know, donate it to an affordable housing effort or some statue or something. Because in some respects, it's the history of Edina in your property or a property. I mean, I saw an ancestor's will and they listed all his property. And when it came to Negro, it was 0, thank God. But the fact is that's a historic document that showed this was an issue at a point in time. But I'd rather see, you know, if the legislature can do it by law and just make it a no-cost thing, that's fine for those who want it. But
it feels like you're trying to whitewash the issue by removing them. It happened. It was there.
yeah, I'm not trying to whitewash it. I'm just saying.
No, I didn't say you were. I said it feels like trying to get rid of them. Looks like you're trying to whitewash the issue. It happened. We look back on it now with despair and astonishment that people actually did that, but they did.
So do people want to vote on this, or should we just not add the sentence? Steve?
I think that.
What
I
are
don't
we
think
voting on?
Joe had suggested that we add a sentence saying that the task force suggests that remaining covenants that are on the books be removed.
Yeah, I would suggest that we not go into that. I think that goes far outside our charter as a housing task force. I think we've acknowledged it. I think that there is a paragraph that follows. I'm not sure if it's a whole new topic or if it is intended to be a sort of a wrap up of this section that talks about all the steps that Edina has taken to try to encourage more economic and racial diversity.
Yeah.
And I think that feels perfectly appropriate and is the kind of positive thing I think we want to lean on. But I don't think we want to put in a specific requirement that's way outside of our purview.
All right, how about the title for the report?
Oh, title for the report. Advancing, all right, so it used to be Advancing Housing Priorities for Edina. It was recommended that it should be Identifying Housing Priorities for Edina.
Whatever title has 3 votes, I'll add my 4th to.
In the spirit of compromise. Okay.
Advancing housing priorities for Edina, a 5 for me. And I need to hop off. It's 9. So.
Okay.
Thank
you. Happy door knocking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll vote 5 for advancing.
Okay. 5, 5, 3 by Norm, 5 by Tom, 5 by Dan. Okay, it's advancing.
1 for me, and again, it's
okay.
It's a leading word, and I'm not a big growth guy, obviously, and I feel it's promoting. It's a leading word promoting growth. Common theme for me.
And we appreciate that, Joe. You're consistent.
And you're on the record.
Okay. So now we have to talk about next steps.
As a footnote, Stephanie.
Yes.
I would like to also emphasize, I would like to see more positive language talking about the progress that Edina has made in furthering the repairing the wrongs of the past.
So you feel like that section that follows that identifies all the work that's been done on affordable housing isn't yet sufficient, that you want more actions listed?
It lists activities.
Right, but what is concrete and what are some examples?
I don't think we have to be concrete here. I think we just need to put in language that says that we're very proud of the work that's been done.
It's congratulatory statements.
It is. I'm fine with that.
So we currently say Edina seeks to be a welcoming, diverse, and vibrant community. And City of Edina took steps in recent art. I don't know what the sentence doesn't read well, but in recent years to articulate and act on its vision and values for housing in the community. That seems like a pretty strong statement. But you'd like to go beyond that?
You bet. We spent several pages talking about the wrongs of the past, and I would like to see a concluding statement in this section talking about the support specifically from our housing task force for what was being done and setting the stage for the future. I think we need to be very, very positive about this.
Got it.
I agree.
Okay.
I agree too. I agree.
I don't want to put the wrong tone on it, so do a couple people want to volunteer to craft a sentence or two to put in there?
Or I will.
Thank you, Norm.
We need another person. I think there should be two people doing it. Bernadette, can I volunteer you because you're very strong in this area?
Sure.
Thanks.
Because homeschooling isn't enough.
From yelling at my kids all day.
Hey, I have a new puppy I have to take care of. I'm very busy.
I just got a new puppy too, Dan.
So, all right. After this meeting, and it's 9:04, we are cutting Merritt loose to make sure numbers are, she has highlighted numbers that she needs to do research on to make sure that the dates it was approved. She's updating data from the census to make sure that those numbers are accurate. That type of fact checking is very time consuming, and I have a feeling that I have some research I'm supposed to do for her too. And so we are going to cut her loose to be able to focus on this, cleaning it up, and so she can get it ready for submittal next Monday to the different commissions.
I'd like to volunteer to work with her to finalize the house or the school piece.
Oh, yeah, you sent an email in, and you guys have had some exchanges. So, Merritt, I guess I'm going to need to hear from you because I know it is challenging. In September and August, you wanted long stretches between meetings so you could focus and write, because you like to write like 4 drafts, and when we have been meeting so frequently, you haven't been able to do that.
So I did change the section on schools yesterday and added text that I think Joe and Norm had crafted.
Okay.
I sent you a note last night regarding that. I appreciated what you did. I think it needs to go further.
Okay. But, and then what we need to work on, we don't have a meeting next Wednesday because City Hall is closed. So we need to find another date, because in the interim, you need to work on a presentation and how you're going to present this information and your work to the commissions. The presentation would be like 5 or 10 minutes long. Yeah?
Is that on the 10th of December? Is that the date?
No, that's the one that's going to be on the 17th of November.
17th of November. Okay.
And it could be very similar to what is presented on the 10th and the 15th.
Okay.
But the first meeting is a presentation to the commissions.
What is the 15th?
Pardon me?
What is the 15th?
The 15th of December, City Council. 10th of December is HRA. And 17th of November is HRRC and Planning Commission.
I'm sorry. Last time I'll ask this, I'm going to write this down. Give me the dates one more time.
That's fine. 17th of November, HRRC and Planning Commission, 7 p.m.
Okay.
Presentation.
Who makes the presentation?
The chairs.
Next.
7:30 a.m., December 10th. Okay.
December 10th, who are we meeting with?
HRA.
Send out meeting requests for that.
I'm sorry, Bernadette, I didn't understand that.
Could you send out meeting requests, dates and times?
Sure can. I'll send out. Yeah,
Send
they
out an
won't be the
email.
They won't be the WebEx invitation. I'll do a generalized meeting. Hold it on your calendar. The WebEx will be coming from someone else.
Yeah, just an hour or whatever
Yep.
would be great.
I can I can totally do that. I will do that. And then December 15th at 7 p.m. is City Council.
Okay. And November 18th, the task force meets.
The November 18th at 7 o'clock in the morning, the task force meets to digest what we heard the night before. But I think we need to have a meeting prior to the 17th to talk about the presentation.
What we're going to talk about, yes, I agree.
The 11th, the offices are closed. It's is it Veterans Day?
Yes.
It's Veterans Day, so I could meet the 12th I can't meet in the morning because that's an HRA meeting. I could meet Tuesday the 10th.
Tuesday the 10th, I could meet. I can't meet till the afternoon.
All right, I will put out a Survey Monkey for that week.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Tuesday, the 10th would be a meeting for us to talk about the presentation that was made.
That will be made on the 17th.
Be made. Yep.
Okay.
And then the 18th, we'll review the response to the presentation.
Yep.
We have a date on the calendar of November 4th to approve final draft of executive summary.
That was today. We changed it last Thursday. We changed it to today.
And underneath it says approved final report with appendices.
Yeah, well, there's been more comments to the final report, so that is still being worked on.
Shall we just
final
choose a
report
date?
On the 9th?
Shall we choose a date to meet to approve the final report?
That's what I'm trying to, yeah, and that would be the same meeting as the presentation, and that's what I need to send out a Survey Monkey for.
Okay, so 2 things on the agenda for the meeting date, yet to be determined.
Yep, and so please respond to the Survey Monkey. I know some of you are less prone to do so.
I will.
Steve.
I'm not quite sure whether there's an ongoing role for the task force members for the next week or so, but if Merritt feels the need to reach out to anybody, I would be happy to do something just to help move this forward. So feel free to reach out.
I would say your presentation, and that is something that you guys can talk to each other about, is how you're going to present this to the commissions and the HRA.
Great.
What are the highlights? I mean, seriously, 10 minutes. So what are the highlights? What are the 30,000 foot up points that you, I mean, they're going to read the whole thing, but what are you going to present to them?
What format do they expect presentations in? Verbal or visual?
PowerPoint. I would say PowerPoint.
We'll let Dan and Bernadette reach out as they feel they need to reach out to people.
Right, but I think the presentation is going to represent all of you. Yeah. So it's going to be like the executive summary, where I would say have a picture of an elephant and blindfolded people around it, you know, trying to describe it.
We'll work on that as a group.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Be safe tomorrow. Be sane. Don't stay up too late watching the returns, because you're not going to know by the end of the night anyway. And go vote.
Why? Why? Because the mayor has a tough race. We may not know till 3, 4 a.m. whether he wins.
You never know. Well, I was thinking about that. This is a sidebar, and I could probably turn off the recorder. But, like, will we know local results? Are we waiting for all results for the next few weeks, or are we just waiting for national?
No, all local results should be available.
Yeah, I think they're available almost real time.
Yeah, because in Minnesota, they can start counting all the absentee and early votes now. So whether the media covers it is another story, but yeah.
Okay.
Have a good week.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's what I didn't know. All right. Okay, well, thank you all.
Thank you.